What's great that slideshow happened?
Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 388 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada, recording March 27th, 2023. Pierre's not here, so I will read his section. We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 an episode. Show you're not a communist, buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right. All right. And now our favorite segment of the show, What Are We Drinking?, which has returned to us actually drinking things other than water. As is tradition, we will start with Liz.
Yeah. So I am drinking coffee mixed with some Jack Daniel's Tennessee honey. Yeah.
Excellent choice. Excellent
you.
choice. I was
Nice.
just in Tennessee. There was a lot of Jack Daniel's stuff there.
Is it true about the county that JD is actually made in is dry?
Yes.
That's
The
what I
only
thought.
thing that you can buy in the county is commemorative bottles of Jack Daniel's at the distillery.
Which probably are like a lot of
Yeah.
I know, right? They're probably gouging people for those though.
Yeah, it was like I bought one when I was there many years ago. It was like $300 for a bottle, but it is
Yeah.
like an actual special commemorative thing that you can't get anywhere else.
Oh, okay.
And I believe the employees all do get like a bottle with their paycheck.
Oh, like every other week?
I believe so.
Every paycheck?
I believe so, or like once
So
a
they
month
have
or whatever.
alcoholics working for them. Got it.
Yeah,
Well, love your job and you'll never work a day in your life, something like that, right?
yeah.
It's true. I got to do some fun things at work today. So it was,
There you go.
yeah, it's always a
Would-
thing.
Would one of those fun things knock off something on your Patriot Challenge list?
Yeah, it would. I have 45 minutes of exercise for sure.
Well, good job.
Yeah, I work for vets. So I do human resources for like multiple vet clinics. So I was actually on farm with a large animal vet. So she was
Nice.
doing like pregnancy checks on cows all morning. So I went with her and I was wandering around barns all morning. So that was yeah,
That's a skill. Yeah.
that's a skill for sure. Yep. Got to see a lot of, anal probing.
A lot of
essentially.
amazingly large gloves involved. Yes.
Oh, there's a full body wrap, and she wears like, yeah. Peter knows what it's about.
Wow.
But a way cooler skill that I've been working on, I will say, because I mean, shoving an arm in a cow's butt is not that cool. But or watching it done, I should say. No, I was working on tanning hides on the weekend with my mom. So I have a couple of deer pelts that are currently drying out. We put them in this solution and did all the things, and she's teaching another generation of people how to tan hides. So
Nice.
that was fun. Yeah. The next person, I'm gonna skip Peter because he's talking with people, obviously. And Ian's I'm gonna go on to Ian.
Fair enough. I'm drinking a gift from the wife. It's camera horn, I think is how you pronounce it. It's like rum.
Sorry, did you say
liqueur-
camera whore? Or
Something like that. That's
Oh.
that's me anyway. It's a Grenadian, like from Grenade, not the weapon, but
Yeah.
anyways, Grenadian rum liqueur. And so I'm having that with some macadamia nut milk. So I figured we'd have a nice eclectic mix of booze tonight. So
Mm.
yeah, it's actually pretty tasty. It's like a brown cow, but rum based.
Interesting.
Explain the macadamia nut milk. Like, are you drinking that because you just have a bunch of hippies in your house? Or are you drinking it because it tastes good? Like,
Well, not to diss your cows or anything else, but actually, like literally, none of us really dig on regular milk. So we start off with almond milk, but then at Costco they have those big 6 packs of macadamia nut milk, and it's cheaper than almond
Mm.
milk, and it's actually tastier. And it's for the
It's
people.
probably because the nipples are bigger on the macadamia nut, so it's
Well,
easier to
yeah,
melt.
you have to really try with those things, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, but everybody seems to like it, and we just kind of stuck with it versus real milk, and it's just tasty. So it goes good with like rum because it's
That's cool.
tropical.
No,
and
I
heavy.
actually ask because like I don't buy milk per se. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
buy cream, but it's usually almond milk or
Mhm.
oat milk. And I find both of those are great if you're looking to make a fancy coffee, but they're kind of thick. So,
And we
and
drop-
obviously more expensive. So,
We dropped both of those like bad habits for macadamia nut milk, which was cheaper at Costco.
Huh?
you might have to check into that.
Yeah. And then for the Patriot Challenge, of course, well, did go to the range yesterday, but that doesn't quite count. And it appears today I went for like a 90-kilometer walk because I may have forgotten to turn off my my recording as I went and driving up island. So yeah, no, I did my I think it was a 7K walk today with the wife, and then we probably left the timer on and hopped in the truck and went up island. So anyway, that we're in that, but and lots of water to go with the macadamia nut milk. I always have water handy. So
Nice.
Nice.
Peter.
I'd love to just sit here and make fun of your guys' milk for like an hour and a half. That would be
Go.
like my day.
I have thick skin. It's all good.
So does the cow I get my milk from.
Fair enough too. I grew up.
Listen.
I grew up next to a dairy farm. I got the whole milk for like 25 cents a gallon back in the day. But I mean,
Oh,
It's just not, I do have to say, like, it's not the same anymore. We
No,
used to
not
be
at
able
all.
to go down to the neighborhood farm and my mom would buy like milk by the pail, fresh out of the parlor. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
but you can't drink raw milk anymore. That's dangerous. The
well,
government.
but that's
won't
what I
let you.
mean though, right? Like, it's not just like you can't drink raw milk, but there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Like, I just found out today that they're trying to breed in, I didn't know this, but they're trying to get the genetics good for milking, like dairy cows, so that they don't grow horns. They're like pulled, because dehorning cows is soon going to become like not friendly. So
Just
now
like-
they're trying to genetically breed cows growing horns out of the system.
just like you can't dock a dog's tail or dock their ears down or anything else. And yeah, they're going with all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
But they're doing like crazy shit to compensate for that, right? So that's wild if you think about it. But anyways, sorry, Peter, cut you off.
we allegedly still get our milk from a farm in pails. It's great. And cream and yeah, anyway.
I love that. No,
so
I would probably consume a lot more
it's so
milk if
good.
I did that too.
So we'll see how Manor works today. It's kind of fun, but I am drinking water because that's what we have up here. And I spent the last 2 weeks practicing my wood cutting abilities. So that's what I've done.
Well, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Awesome. Yeah, your wood cutting photo looks like you've been quite busy getting it all done.
Yeah,
I guess that-
there was no pile there when they started.
Is like, what is the purpose of, what's the end game for the wood cutting?
to have wood.
Okay, but when you go out for 2
Keep this
weeks,
place warm next year and the
is
year
that
after.
so? That's the
once we
gig, is
cut.
that you just go out for an extended period of time and log some places in prep for the coming year.
Well, so this is for a certain company. They have eco lodges,
Mm.
ecotourism lodges. So you can come look at polar bears and wolves and moose and whatever. And usually I go to a different one every year that we do 10 days and cut all the wood for that one for the year. But they don't need any wood at that one because we did too much last year. So came to this one this year.
You're too
we're
efficient.
yeah. We're about, I don't know, I'd say 80K east of like York Factory on the Hudson Bay, and I'm probably
Wow.
cutting out, but yeah, so we got enough wood for the next couple of years.
Good job.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, well, I guess that leaves me. I'm drinking some sort of coconut water vodka thing that was in the fridge. Because I'm just trying to make room in my fridge. It's tasty. Don't hate it.
Clearly don't love it.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, like I like the taste of coconut, so it's
You
good.
don't like the taste?
No, I do. I
Oh,
do.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
and-
it's nice and smooth.
yeah, it's like sweet but not too sweet. I'm
Also, very hard
sorry.
to milk those coconuts too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably easier than a macadamia nut though.
Yeah,
Wow.
probably.
that's the tough outer skin makes
Yeah.
it difficult. Yeah.
Did
then,
you use a machete?
Patriot Challenge.
So gay.
Yeah, I did some shooting the other day, so practice that. I also practiced my politicking by attending gun club AGMs and running for positions and all of that fun stuff. That was less than enjoyable, but public speaking is a skill and it's important at times. I did not win my position, although I stepped down in favor of somebody else that was running for the position, but I did get several handshakes and a couple of emails saying that I was very classy.
Oh,
by
there you
handling
go.
it. So that felt good.
Yeah.
And also really good news today. My doctor told me I don't have to take the blood thinners anymore. So
Yay.
the drinking can increase.
Sweet, man.
Do you
So-
think that maybe doing the 75 hard at all contributed to your not needing to take blood thinners anymore?
No, I mean, so he seems to think that me having the blood clot was actually not because I got vaccinated, because I didn't, but that COVID itself is also causing clots, which might
Yep.
be like why those that do get vaccinated, because it didn't stop them from getting COVID, are at an even higher chance of getting it because they got the vax and they likely got COVID because they thought that they were safe and weren't licking doorknobs or whatever they were doing in order to get it. So like then that also, but yeah, they're finding that even just getting COVID increases your chance of getting a blood clot.
That's fair. Is your doctor like a really good doctor given the nature of all this stuff?
I mean, he seems to be like, I've got to do some
Yeah.
follow-up stuff still, but he's like, yeah, if like everything looks good, go off them in 4 weeks. I've got to go do blood work just to see. So they do like the D-dimer test or whatever, just to see if my blood is in a clotting state or not. And then like an ultrasound on my leg that I got to go do in a week just to make sure that everything is good. But you seem to be good. And
And you're feeling good though, eh?
oh yeah, I mean, I have been for
Yeah.
weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks now. But yeah, officially, I guess in 4 weeks I'll officially be clear. But like clear to go off stupid blood thinners, which is
That's
good when
good.
you have a cat because he scratches the shit out of my hands because he's a little asshole.
Oh, and then you bleed.
Yeah. So
For an hour.
yeah,
Keeps that toxoplasmosis out of the wound anyway, so it's all good.
yeah,
It's also true.
Yeah.
Flushes it right out.
yeah. I mean, I might die, but like whatever. At least I'm not itchy and stuff.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So you guys can also grab the Patriot Challenge template off of our website, post it to the social media, post it directly to the Fed social media, whatever you want to do.
There you go. We'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit the Canadian Patriot Podcast.com/feedback. Or you can email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. I guess a version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
Where?
I don't know. I've never been on either, so
Yeah, it's all right. You're not missing anything.
I didn't think so.
Upcoming events, the Veristolaka Remote Military March is April 28th and 29th. You need to register in advance if you want to get your cool patch. If you don't care about patches, just go out for a walk. It's all good. Same 3 divisions as they always do. The Resul 4-day march is also coming up May 18th to 21st. That's the Victoria
That's a
Day
long weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. Then the Army Run virtually is running September 8th through
We gotta
29th.
register for that.
There is an in-person one as well. If you feel like going to Ottawa, discount code
Yeah.
Army 2022 for 10% off, which
Nope.
I think ends tomorrow. Maybe it's already ended. I don't know, but you should have already have signed up. Do the things. Go and do fitness.
I'm gonna be away in May.
That's okay. I plan to do at least a 10K at some point over that May long weekend.
Okay.
Because at the very least, I'm going to get the minimum participation award.
That's what I did though. I
Yeah.
did the Resul one and I got
Yeah.
my patch and my
Yeah.
got my little certificate. You can
Yeah.
get a certificate.
Yeah, I've got mine for the last couple of years, and I've got my pin with the different things I've earned on it, but I don't have the 10K over 4 days one because I've always achieved higher than that. So I'll figure
Yeah,
out this
my
way.
mom
This
and-
way I'll get 4 different color pins on it eventually.
There you go. No,
Yeah.
my mom and I we set our standards pretty low doing
Okay.
that.
What
We were
matters
like,
is that
"Oh,
you still
okay."
came out and did it.
Oh yeah.
There are people that didn't.
I don't think my mom
Well-
really knew what she was getting into, but she was a
all
trooper.
there. Yeah.
She was a trooper.
There you go. On to the news.
Sure.
A bunch of these are well, all of them are China related because that seems to be a hot
It's-
topic.
Yeah, it's
China.
yeah, it's pretty in the news these days. Can we just start with the hilarious Joe Biden one?
Yeah, I mean, I put that in the stack, but if you want to jump right into that one, let's do it. 'Cause
It's-
that one was
I think it's just a great way to add levity to some ridiculousness.
yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
It's pretty wild that, in North America, that is honestly what people have come to expect out of him.
Yeah,
Like Joe Biden is like the wild faux pas, and the fact that he equated Canada to China is like,
yeah. So I guess for any listeners that are living under a rock or that are listening to this sometime far
haven't
into the
watched like the
future,
million memes that have come
Yeah.
out.
So Joe Biden was in Ottawa visiting with Trudeau to talk about China and a bunch of other stuff.
What a meeting of the minds that was.
Yeah. Definitely Dumb and Dumber. But yeah, he and I quote said, "I applaud China."
Yeah.
That was he meant to say Canada, but he did say that
Did he?
applauds China.
Yeah, are they
Well-
really that separate at this point?
I mean,
It was just
It's a
so
Freudian
No.
slip.
funny though.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was just so funny because he's even at the point now where he doesn't even try to hide the fact that that his Freudian slips are not
well,
few and far between.
he had another
right?
one like days ahead of this one where he did something else and said something stupid. I can't think what it is right now.
Well, even
But-
worse, he actually repeated the same error like,
Yeah.
2 minutes later, and again referred to Canada as China in the same
Yeah.
speech. And in between, of course, you got all the liberal devotees there, like clapping like baby seals. They're like, "Oh, that's so funny! Oh, it's great!
I
He's got
know.
Yeah.
he's got dementia. This is great." And I
It-
mean,
So were the ones clapping the ones that got all the money, you think, or
I have no
Ugh,
idea, but
yeah,
I just laugh.
probably.
It's like they openly applaud his complete
Yeah.
ineptitude, and
Yeah.
I was like,
Well,
"Wow,
It's pretty alarming too, because you look at it and you're like, this is the guy that is running, a
Yeah.
country. And whether he's actually running the country or not, it's very similar to Canada. They are kind of the ones that at a whim, can call a shot that has to kind of be followed. And it's just alarming because it makes the world is looking at all of North America.
yeah,
Well, not Mexico. Everybody forgets about Mexico, but
Yeah.
the rest
the-
of North America as like, it's such a laughing stock, right? Such a
But-
laughing stock.
Foliev got a nice little jab in there too. And if you watch that later in the day, he was talking about after he had met with Joe Biden privately. And he actually said, "Yeah, I met with President Obama. I mean, Joe Biden." And we all know who's calling the shots anyway, right? And
Yeah.
it was awesome. He did it with a straight face too, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. I made a mistake."
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Oh, it's so good.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah.
It's just wild. It's pretty insane. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
And there's these are all about China.
Yeah, I mean, there's been the first one here that I have is that the CSIS increasing concerns
Yeah.
about China's interference in Canada. So this is a slightly older one. This is going back to November of last year there. So like it shows you just like
But that's when they
the
were really
progression,
starting to
right?
get into, I was going to say, that's when they were really starting to get into these questions about the interference with the election. And I think it's,
Well, it was right around this time too that they were
Yeah.
starting to find those Chinese secret police stations that were scattered throughout the sort of major cities in
Yeah.
Canada that they were using to spy on like former Chinese citizens and things like that. So like,
yep.
you know,
And like finding the China, what were they doing? They were finding Chinese defectors too,
yeah,
stuff like that. And this is something that I feel pretty like passionate about in general, because I guess not necessarily this topic, but I just think this topic really represents something that we all have to be so mindful of. Like that should have incited some like an international incident. Like that's an international, like it should have created a giant response,
yeah.
in my
It
opinion.
would have if everybody didn't know it was a thing already.
But
Well,
this
yeah.
is but this
It's
is the
no
problem. There's
secret
like
that our government is
zero
bought and paid for.
consequences.
6 times over.
Yeah, but
Look,
this is mind-blowing to me. Okay, that is just so much stuff that is so treasonous. I don't know if I'm using the right words here, but like just very, my words are
Well,
lost because I am so astounded that people
Yeah.
are not outraged by this and that there is no consequences, because there really isn't. What? So one Liberal MP might resign over this?
Well, I mean, and this is so I don't doubt that all governments have all kinds of shady
Mhm.
things going on in all kinds of
But
different
it's so
countries, right?
overt. It
We
is
we
so
all
overt.
we all have our own spy agencies that are doing things, right? Like
Yeah.
so, but when there's so many of them from China in your country, and your prime minister who appreciates their or admires their basic dictatorship and everything and all this, and then we find out about these things and then nothing happens about it.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing for you, like for something to happen that you don't know about,
Yeah.
and then you're like you find out about it and you do something about it, but like
Absolutely.
right around this
It's
time in November,
overt.
yeah, they made like a big stink about it for all of about a week.
But it still really didn't make
And-
it into like the 5 o'clock
Yeah.
news or the 7 o'clock news.
No,
It really didn't make it into that. You have to be actively seeking out some of these controversial topics for it to even hit the media. And
Yeah.
again, I am just flabbergasted at how people are accepting this as something. Now, that being said, what do you do about it?
Well, yeah,
I
I
thought that
mean-
we had all gone to the polls back in
go and
2021.
like CSIS should be like, I don't know, raiding these secret police
Yeah.
stations and shutting them down. Like,
Well, and the other side of it too is that why is CSIS not actually turning an investigation into the electoral process, right? And whether
Yeah.
that's outside of their jurisdiction, I don't know. But there has to be some regulatory body
to
that's
me,
like,
I don't
oh,
think it would
hey,
be.
kind
Like
of have.
that's
Yeah,
sort of
I
their
would
job,
assume that
right?
that's their job. And somebody has to be kind of, within the realm of holding to account, these politicians that are in power, right?
it's just so funny.
Who's the head of CSIS though? He's probably a political appointee appointed by
Yeah.
I don't
liberals,
know.
so he's going to
Yeah.
prevent
Wouldn't
that.
surprise
Everything
me.
here is appointed, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me. But I mean, this is exactly it. Like, so right around
Yeah.
that same November time frame is that like all of the things are coming out where CSIS did the threat analysis on the
Yeah.
convoy and all that, and they're like,
Ugh.
these people were not a threat. But here we are, them coming forward and saying, China is a threat to Canada right now, and there's
Yeah.
like a bunch of shit going on that we're concerned about. But what was everyone focused on? Oh, the convoy, right? But here you
Yeah.
are, like, maybe like we should, and this is be weird for me to say because I normally don't think we should trust any of these, but like when the government agency is telling you that you should maybe pay attention to this thing, maybe you should pay attention to it when they're saying that like China is a bit of a threat.
Well, and that's the thing is that, okay, so it's really noticeable with COVID, but people stuck so hard on, oh, COVID is bad, convoy people are bad, all these things. And they were super glued to the news and super glued to the authorities that were telling us all that. And then they did not stay super glued to the authorities that were telling us all that when they rescinded some of those statements. Right. And I consider that to be just such a failing of human character. And that may seem a little bit extreme, but I am so disappointed in the human population. I am so
Yeah.
disappointed because they were there to be discriminatory, and they're still there to be discriminatory and vote in somebody who's a bit of a dickhead and just, place
Yeah.
filling. And, and then when, people's taxes go up, and when, people are losing jobs, or people are, having just all kinds of weird shit
Wow.
happen to them. Nobody's speaking out for that.
Yeah. Wow.
It's insane. Oh, something crazy, wild, and new that is also going on that is just feeding into this whole system. There is property in our area, and I'm sure other areas, that they're designating as green space, which allows people to walk or hike publicly on it. They're appropriating people's farmland for this.
Oh, so it's going to be Scotland.
I think people
So-
need to start putting up some hippity hoppity get off of my property signs.
Oh, so the problem is that you can't. But the green space is designated by like a certain amount of like
Okay.
a green cover. So I think people are going to start cutting down trees real fast before this becomes an official thing.
Yeah.
I think people
Peter, you
need to
might
start
have some more
showing
work.
up at, or just showing up at town hall meetings.
Well,
Stand up
so
against some of these bylaws.
here's the problem is that sometimes it's not put in by, the town. It's sometimes put in either by conservation authorities, which don't have a forum for public
Nope.
communication.
They
Right.
don't.
And I mean, the conservationists, and this is really off track. I'm sorry, Gavin, but
No.
the conservationists are just like environmental scientists that are out of a 4-year degree that are making decisions about
Yeah, this
what's
is their
going
religion.
on. Absolutely. And they have zero understanding of impact. They really
Yep.
have none. It's
Yep.
wild.
Where you just need to put on your best like Gandalf outfit and stand at the entrance to the conservation authority and be like, you have
shall
no
not
power
pass."
here.
Yeah,
Like,
shall not pass. Yeah. My recommendation was I was like, oh, fence that off and open a paintball business.
yeah.
Just be like, cross at your own risk.
Yeah.
Nobody
Mhm.
said you couldn't
Put a-
put those paintballs in the freezer first.
Really sweet dog run for your super aggressive dogs right there.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, hey guys, sorry, this is a gun range.
Back to the China thing,
much.
though,
yeah.
we have a bigger problem too. Is like you guys are talking about that MP that had the problems there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, so that he gets caught, and both parties are to blame for this. Actually, all three, I guess, and the fact that he didn't get charged with treason or hung, let
I
alone
know,
that
right?
he didn't have to resign.
No, his name is Han, not Hung.
Yeah, and so all he literally had to do was just, I'm just going to switch from Liberal Party caucus to Independent, and that was considered good, and by all parties,
Yeah.
including the Conservatives. So I don't understand how all of a sudden that's like,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
we understand it could happen to anybody. I know you're independent. All sins are forgiven, and carry on.
Yeah.
That's where the news cycle ended.
Yeah, because somehow he's not going to still vote. Like, well, that's what
Liberal.
drives me crazy about like the Senate too, where you have like independent senators. You're like, you are not independent. You are clearly a liberal senator. Like,
yeah, I don't. Why would he have been allowed to keep his position but just had to leave the the whatever
Because-
the Liberal caucus, I guess.
How could he hold a security clearance?
Well, it's
He's
okay
clearly
though,
calm.
That's
because
what
that's
I mean.
our he's resigned. That's our next article here is
Okay, he has resigned.
yeah,
I
so
would have been
Han
shocked if
Han Dong, it's a terrible name. He's departed. He's no longer there, so he has
What is-
resigned.
Sorry, I didn't even see that one. Where's I didn't even see the article there.
It's the new allegations and a resignation strain already fraught China-Canada relations.
Well, there you go. At least he resigned as something. So that's good.
I mean, this just happened basically. Sunday, yeah, is when this article came out. So, yeah, for those that don't know, he is the guy that is reported to have met with the Chinese diplomats and, you know, did all kinds of stuff. Told them that they should delay releasing the two Michaels and all of this because it would be more favorable for the Liberals and yeah. But again, you know, his resignation came on the back of a series of leaks from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS. There's that word again
That
that we're
word
talking
again.
about, and China.
Mhm.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, weird.
Oh, it's astounding.
Wow. But yeah, I mean, like at least this guy has finally retired. But yes, I agree. Like the whole.
He
Well,
didn't retire. He didn't resign.
Well,
it says right here.
If you read the article, he only
What?
resigned from caucus.
oh, well,
He's
there
still
you
sitting
go.
as an independent. He's not gone.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I
then,
just-
yeah, no. Well, there
Piece
you
of
go.
Shit.
See, this is why I
Yep.
should read more.
Yeah, again, so like, yeah, resigning from the governing caucus to
Yeah.
sit as independent is not resigning your seat or
No,
giving up your
exactly.
seat to stand for a by
No,
election.
he's still a liberal.
Yeah,
As far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, he's a liberal. If anything, he's
Yes.
worse than one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the dumbest thing ever, like that you can just do that, right? Where it's just like, well, taking off the sheep's clothing, so now you can just see that I'm a wolf straight out, but like I'm still here. No.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My question is why do we still have CSIS? The last two things that CSIS has come out and said, the government just went the exact opposite way.
Yeah.
During the Emergencies Act hearing, the public inquiry into the Emergencies Act,
Right.
CSIS said that the threshold was not met under the CSIS Act for enacting the Emergencies Act.
Yeah.
They still said that
Yeah.
it met the threshold. CSIS comes out and says there's been election interference. Government says, no, it's fine. So let's just get rid of CSIS.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm good with that. If that's what comes out of this, I'm fine with that.
Well, yeah, because clearly, like we're not listening to what they're saying, so why bother having them around, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we're gonna just do whatever it is that we want to do,
If the only time you listen to them is when they're spying on your own citizens, then maybe we should just get rid of them.
well, yeah. There's some days where I just like I hate this country. At least, maybe not the country itself, but the people that run the country is maybe a better way to put that. But the country itself is quite nice. It's very beautiful.
When a year ago you have, the greatest outpouring of the true Canadian identity with the truckers convoy and all that,
I know.
and on the other end of the spectrum you have Trudeau saying that Canada's the first post-national state of the UN, right? Like we're going to be the first nation that's not a nation under the UN.
Pass. Yeah. I just don't like True North, strong and free. It's in our freaking anthem, and somehow being pro freedom is now not Canadian. Like,
I think it's okay. And yeah, I think it's pretty hard to wrap your mind around when you're on this side of it. But they're doing a pretty good job of marketing things,
yeah,
So the average Joe is really getting sucked into this whole idea, and it's just creating such a divide. And that's the part that sucks. That's the biggest thing that needs to be combated, is the fact that we have like such a large divide. And okay, as much as some of the people that are listening to this were like, hey, we could probably do without, the problem is that you need some of those people still, right? Because they are sometimes the majority. And it just, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel so dejected. I'm like, oh,
Well, yeah, it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't,
Yeah.
because it's just like I can't coexist with these people because
yep.
I just can't. They like, but also we need them to do things, otherwise I can't exist either. So it's just
I
like,
don't know. I don't need Starbucks.
no, I mean they can fuck right off. Like
Well, that's the thing. Like half
But-
of these people work at a Starbucks, they don't work at all. And the
Um,
ones who are pushing the narratives, they're the ones who are paid by the government in CBC and Global
Yeah.
and CTV. Like, get rid of it all. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
no,
We'll survive just fine.
I mean I'm willing to give it a try. Like, how's that?
Yeah,
Like,
as long as,
Hey,
as long as the
it
racists
feels-
still get to vote, that's a problem. So
yeah,
I was actually
Yeah.
thinking about it and I was like, and I know that we've kind of talked about it, is that there really could be a few problems solved if, in order for you to vote, you have to be actively employed. Like, and I'm talking, so you can't be, on social assistance. You have to be employed for, at least 20 hours a week.
you're
That sort
getting
of thing.
there.
Like your T4 has to be a certain median. I don't care what that looks like. And that sounds ridiculous, but I guess I'm just like, oh, well, I think that people would start leveling up a bit.
well, that's where you
Right?
need to be like a taxpayer, not a tax recipient, right?
Oh,
Like,
and also in my plan, in my utopia, if you are in that bracket of earning, which is anybody over like 10,000 a year,
yeah,
and you don't vote, you get fined. So
By the same
that's
token,
also
though,
my
they should also be politically literate enough to vote.
No, I disagree with
Yeah.
that though, because the biggest problem we have right now is people that don't know anything are voting.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
They
we
don't
kind
know.
of also
So no, but then if you force everybody to vote,
yeah.
doesn't mean they're going to do research. They're just going to be like, the news told me the liberals are good.
Yeah, he's got great hair, good socks.
Yeah. They're not going to actually do the research and figure out what's going to be better for them in the long run because they don't know.
But you're halfway
They're
there. I mean,
NPCs.
You started off
Yeah.
with like everybody should vote, Liz. Now you're like halfway to that Starship Troopers model. Give it another 6 months of
problem-
podcasting, you'll get there.
The problem with Starship Troopers is who decides what service is.
well, the
Yeah.
people
it's-
that founded
so-
the nation.
Yeah, but it's not that difficult to take over that system as well.
No, I mean there is no perfect system because I mean, who's to say that like if we did it based on like who pays taxes and who receives taxes, I mean you just shift that scale of who gets paid taxes and now all of a sudden everyone's getting money back except for the top 2% or something, right? Like
Yeah. I mean, there's
So, I
a
mean-
reason that the American Constitution started with only landowners being able to vote
yeah,
because you had to have a stake in it, right? Like you had to have a stake in the country to have a vote.
yeah, which like is a principle I don't disagree with, right? Like
Yeah.
if people that
It's just now. Sorry, I'm stepping on your toes.
No, but
Um,
yeah, it's you've got to have a reason to want to do something because it directly affects you.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I don't disagree with your ideal. Is we'd have to. I don't know.
No, it's a thing.
There definitely something has to be done, but
Yeah.
I don't think anything will. They'll just make it easier for people who don't even have an ID to vote.
Well, and that's
That's all they're gonna do.
yeah, we don't need to make it easier for people that like shouldn't be voting to vote. We need to make it impossible for those people to vote and like maybe restrict maybe make it a little bit harder for those that like can vote but are going to vote stupid. But
That's the
Yeah.
problem, though. Is the
yeah,
current system on both sides is
yeah.
going further the other way, making it
Yeah.
more accessible for people to vote.
Let's let 16-year-olds with no ID whatsoever to go and vote. Like
Yeah.
they're too young to drink alcohol because their brains are still developing and all of those things. But like we'll let them decide the fate of the country.
That's fine. They can pick their gender, so why not?
Yeah, right.
Ugh, drives me crazy.
Almost
So-
like the death throes of an empire. At this point.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's going to be
true.
hard times soon.
I think so. Well,
They
were
need to let
talking
these.
about-
They need to let all these banks crash. Let them fail. But instead, they keep just getting bought up by other banks, which is the bailout. It's just the banks allowed to make
Yeah.
money so they can buy other banks.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what happened. It's not Canadian related, but I think it's
that
impactful. But that's what happened with Silicon Valley, right? That whole
So
thing.
there we go.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, like, sorry, I froze there for a minute.
It's okay. You've been
But with the banks buying the other banks, like it's just that's the federal bailout because they're allowed to print money essentially with some of the reforms that Trump put in, or it might have been early Biden. I don't know. Anyway, so they're using federal money essentially to just bail out
Oh,
these
I mean-
banks that should be failing and dying. And yes, it's going to be hard times
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
while.
But I mean,
but
we
that's
have
how
the
you
same.
get it fixed.
Yeah, we have the same nonsense up here. I mean, our banks are
Yep.
more stable than the U.S. banks because we don't just let like random
Because we don't have an
family.
economy.
Well, we don't let random families just open up a bank that have like no ability to support it, right? They're a little bit stronger in that regard. But I
But
mean, we
these
have
aren't
that-
small banks though.
Well, but I mean, that's how a lot of them got started. Is that they're not like they have like one location somewhere and things like that. Like you would never have that here.
No, the Silicon Valley Bank is like the
Well, it's a
seventh
bigger-
largest
that's a-
bank.
Yes, that's a bigger one, but like in the U.S. banking system and the way the Canadian one are totally
Fair
different.
enough. Yeah,
But
I won't argue
we
that.
we still have the same problem up here though with like the entities that are too big to fail, and that was put in one of the
Yeah.
things a couple of years ago where like they have basically given the banks permission to seize your assets if they ever need them to bail out somebody that they deem is too big to fail. So if a bank
Mhm.
fails, that's definitely on that list, but also is like Bombardier because they've been deemed too big to fail. I'm sure
Yeah.
some of the other airlines and stuff like that, like Air Canada, if they ever need another bailout, like why would we print more money when we could just steal your money? You know,
And then give you worthless bank stock in exchange for it.
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
right. Like that's how our banks are going to fail is through that. But
Yep.
like, you know, this is the problem. And this too big to fail thing is like, well, if they're too big to fail, why are they failing?
I
Yeah.
actually don't hate the idea that just anybody can start a bank. Like John Rich of Big and Rich
Yep.
started a bank.
Oh, did he? But he's like
Yeah.
he's pretty alt too, though.
Yeah,
He
I was
actually
drunk.
just
he's-
did a song with
based.
Tom
Yeah,
he's
McDonald.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
it's
did.
good. I was imbibing a few alcoholic beverages at his bar in Nashville the other evening. It was
Yeah.
Oh,
probably
that's
one of my
awesome.
favorite bars there
Yeah.
because it did
Yeah.
not have the sign out front that said I couldn't carry a gun.
Oh.
Now, because I was imbibing alcohol at the time, I was not carrying a gun,
But you could have
Right.
if you
I
wanted
could
you
to.
have
could
if I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. No, but you should definitely go give that song a listen. It's pretty good. The video is hilarious too. If you haven't seen the
Yeah.
video,
Yeah, I'll check it out tonight.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If something is too big to fail, it shouldn't fail. That should just go without
Yeah.
saying.
Yep.
But
Free market capitalism.
Yeah.
With a mix of Austrian economics.
yeah, well, on to other stupid things that China
Oh,
related.
On to other stupid things.
Yeah. Trudeau lays out China approach ahead of Biden meeting.
China.
So
China.
apparently, we have a three-pronged approach for dealing with China. Where was this thing here? We are going to. Where is he? He's got three words here. I'm trying to find them in this thing that we're going to do.
Is
Global
collaborate one of them?
economic decoupling.
No, I mean
Sounds very clinical.
that's what Biden was saying that we're going to do. Where is it? We've got this thing here. Bear with me a second here. I'm trying to find where we're going to like challenge them and confront them and do something else. There's,
Yeah. Who?
yeah,
Cock to them, something like that.
yeah, something that's probably more likely what it is, but oh, it was like right in the fucking thing.
Just send Hunter to do it.
Yeah, it's worked out well for the Ukraine.
10% for the big guy.
Yeah. Oh, so we're going to engage constructively while still challenging them and stupid things like that. So yeah, we're going to engage constructively with them on things like climate change.
Oh, that just makes me want to.
I saw that worked so well
Also-
when she like schooled Trudeau at the last G20 there,
Yeah.
right face to face, and sent him running away like a little girl. But that's fine. No offense to this, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, here we go. Engagement.
She's not a little girl,
Yeah,
she's a big girl.
engagement, competition, and confrontation is what we're going to do.
Say that
So-
again, sorry.
Engagement, competition, and confrontation. That's the three-pronged approach to dealing with China, where we will engage them on things like climate change, somehow become more competitive against China in other things, probably by,
Paying our people less.
putting more tariffs in place or subsidizing things on our end.
They're not going to do that. There's no way they're going to do that.
Well, I guess this sort of, I think, goes hand in hand with what Biden's going to talk about as well. But like, and then the other thing is that we're going to still confront them on things like human rights and stuff like that. I mean, probably not
except
going to
you-
confront
except
them on
our
like
leader won't
spying on
even-
their own citizens, but like,
Our leader won't even call the Uyghur genocide a genocide.
That tracks.
yeah.
So
Oh,
he's going
and
to call them out on what human rights violations? The
Well,
ones
yeah.
that he won't say are happening?
Yeah,
Like,
or
come
like we're not even going to stop the human rights violations that are happening in Canada against Canadian citizens and
Yeah.
former Chinese citizens by having them spied on by the Chinese, right? Because like, what have we done about that? Sweet fuck all.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about getting rid of more human rights. And that's the conversation.
yeah,
Yeah. That sounds
yes.
about right.
Trudeau is now the longest serving leader in the G7.
Blech,
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
blech.
yeah, I know. And he's been an ally to Biden in providing military and financial assistance to Kiev since Russia's invasion in February of 2022.
It's a border dispute. Stay out of it.
Yeah,
Mm. I have so many feelings.
I'm just looking forward to when I do my taxes at the end of the next month there, and they can
Yeah.
tell me how much money I need to send to the Ukraine.
Yeah. Where's the box that I can tick that just says, you know what, just send it all to Ukraine. I don't want any in Canada. Do I
Yeah.
get like extra points for that?
No, it's automatically
Right.
ticked for you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah, so they're talking about how like China is the second largest economy in the world, and it continues to grow. You know, and that they're going to have to,
Until their
in cer-
population collapses.
yeah, in some
There's that.
circumstances, engage constructively with China, like we did around the conference on biodiversity that was hosted with them in Montreal.
That stuff just
Yeah.
makes me cringe.
Yeah. So yeah, they're going to have to be stiff competition to China in terms of market access and in terms of investments in the global south.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
So Africa.
So we're probably gonna be giving more money to places that are not a good investment.
Good.
That's what I just said. Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I just said. Awful. Awful choice.
Yeah, but we're going to need to challenge them, whether it's on human rights violations or it's security behaviors, on cyber attacks, and concerns like that.
Yes, we're going to tell them not to do it, and that will totally stop them.
Yes, please stop spying on us.
Kind of like when Biden said don't touch these things because they're critically important to the U.S. infrastructure. And
Yeah.
they gave them a complete list of what they should attack.
Yep. They're and ours too. Power
Yeah.
grids are so weak.
Yeah.
Like it's would not take much for them to put all of Canada and the US in the dark in a hurry. We'd be Quebec and some of Manitoba would be, or some of Quebec and some of Manitoba would be okay because of our hydro. But it'd be dark quick. And some of Ontario has nuclear, I guess, but I think that runs through transformers as well, big transformer stations. If I'm right.
Yeah, you also
Yeah.
need external power to run a nuke station, believe it or not.
Well, that's okay because I think in this next article here they've solved some of this stuff here. So the US
Yeah,
wants
okay.
Canada to take part in a global economic decoupling from China. So I guess the thing that Biden was presenting here and is invited Canada to take part in a global economic decoupling in a multi-nation effort to repatriate critical supply chain away from sorry, my mouth isn't working here.
I was gonna say,
Authoritarian countries such as China.
it's
do-
brutal.
Details are to
Hey,
come in Tuesday's federal
wasn't-
budget, but Canada is set to follow the US in establishing a major package of industrial subsidies. Those incentives are supposed to create the industrial base for a low carbon future and bring jobs to North America.
So basically, they're asking him to take a side, and of course, China and Russia just signed a little deal to have
Yeah.
a stronger alliance economically and everything else. And I think the U.S. is trying to gather hard
Yeah.
allies, but in reality, is we've got a foot in each pool, so to speak.
Yeah, but yes, through the US Inflation Reduction Act and a pair of other big money laws, they have an industrial strategy that offers massive subsidies for high tech and green industry.
It's funny the economic decoupling was a Trump idea.
Yeah, but it's different when they do it.
They've just twisted it. And they've twisted it so that it's not actually like critical infrastructure. It's just green shit.
Yeah.
I have no patience for. Ugh.
Yeah. So basically, it looks like the US is trying to encourage Canada to throw money at green energy and green solutions to things to bring those jobs back to North America.
Except for the fact that pretty much every green solution is either economically or logistically unfeasible.
But that's why we're going to throw a shit ton of money at it
Except
so
nuclear.
that it becomes a viable option, not like an actual viable option, but a viable option for people to run those businesses because they will also now become too big to fail and get all of the free money.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's trash. Dumpster fire.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I hate that I live in a world where I can order everything off of Amazon and it ships from China and it's at my door the next day. I would love to do that from Canadian manufacturers and Canadian businesses and everything, but like if I need a thing tomorrow, that's the only way to do it, and I don't want to pay $50 for it when I can pay $5 for the same thing. But having my taxes go up 10,000% so that I can have a Canadian company supply it to me at the same cost is dumb.
I'd be perfectly fine with them just increasing tariffs to the point where it's close to par. Just
Yeah.
do it with basically everything.
But then what'll happen is you won't have a Canadian made product, and you won't have anybody importing it into Canada because it's too expensive. So you'll have no product because they'll just send their products to another country that's willing to pay the cheap price for it.
For a while,
Tariff.
that will be true until some company in Canada builds that market up and starts doing it with whatever
Well,
it is.
the other
Yeah,
If
option
people want
is-
it that bad, somebody will make money doing it, and so they'll do it.
So by that
Yeah.
logic, then the Canadian firearms market should be putting out quality material at a decent price with zero problems, right? Because like
Should be.
there's a huge
Should
demand
be.
for Canadian-made firearms, and yet it's amazing how BCL, NEA, whatever you want to call them, or Spectre, or Kodiak can't seem to put out a product to save their freaking life, despite the high demand and the premium prices they're charging.
And for a design that's been around
True
for
enough.
100 years.
Yeah, so like, yeah, the demand doesn't dictate success.
Well, and I mean, I know that in my industry, at the very least, because like we deal with these tariff things all the time. So when I have to buy Chinese engines, I get them shipped direct from China, because if they go through the US, I've got to pay that 2% or whatever it is. Other companies have found other solutions where they just stopped manufacturing in China and have now just manufactured in Mexico.
There is a lot of solutions out there if you are
Yeah.
willing to put the time and energy into
Sure.
finding it.
But yeah, I
Um,
mean, like I think if we're going to do anything, the tariffs is a way to do it. But at the end, the consumer is the one that still hurts, because the end product still costs the same, which is expensive.
Of course.
But why are we only looking at subsidizing green initiatives? Like,
Instead of like small scale nuclear or something like that, which would actually be like legitimately effective. But
or just like, if we need a thing with like Canada's emissions are so low. We are 1%, 1% of the global emissions.
Which is 2% of world emissions.
You know, like it's just
Like human emissions are 2% of the
yeah.
CO2 emissions in the world.
But like 1% of global emissions is Canada. So even if we were to do something absolutely incredible and reduce that by 100%, the world is now 1% cleaner.
It's
Well,
like I
and
think that
when we reduce,
yeah.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
when we reduce, let's say it's our energy or something, to zero, we still need that energy. We're not going to get it from wind and solar. That's a proven fact.
Yeah.
So we're going to get that energy then from China or something like that.
Yeah, but
some other place where it's not going to be produced as clean. And so instead of having a 1% reduction on the global market, you're actually going to have a 1.5% increase on the global market, because our energy is going to be whatever. Anyway.
Well, exactly. But like, even if we had some sort of magic solution that somehow we could just absolutely 100% reduce our carbon footprint without, I know it's not possible, but if we somehow made like the perpetual motion machine, but for like carbon green footprint and all that, and just like we deleted 1% of our emissions and still didn't need to get energy from anywhere else, because we were just like powered by the good feelings we have or something by being green.
I do think that
1%
that's-
globally. If we could get a
Yeah.
hell of a lot more for a lot less money out of, I don't know, maybe trying to get China and India to clean up their act, like just a fraction.
But here's the difference, though, is that China and India don't give a flying fart in space what the rest of the world thinks.
They don't.
Canada really does, right? So it's a peer pressure element,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of like this cronyism that's happened,
Yeah.
where all these leaders of, whatever these countries are, have decided that, hey, let's all say that this is cool. Like it's like high school politics. That's
Yeah.
it. It's like they want to
No,
be the cool kids. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
insanity.
stupid.
And it
It's
doesn't
stupid.
make sense. And I think that the more that I try to wrap my mind around it, the more I realize that human beings are not capable of common sense. And so they're easily led astray by individuals who really don't have society's best interest at heart.
I think you might be a little bit further along that path than Ian was thinking earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
There, Liz. Yeah, like,
It's almost like producing your own oil versus paying somebody to ship it across an ocean for the same usage rate
Yeah.
is somehow cleaner than doing it at home. Sooner or later people might actually engage in common sense and start using their own oil. But of course that would interfere with the refinery actions on the East Coast that may some people may have a financial interest in.
Well, and I mean, I get that there's some political relationships that people are trying to manage. Okay. I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it. At certain points in history, you have to be like, okay, I'm bringing everything home. We're going to use our resources for ourselves first. And that's just not what's happening. Right.
No,
and
but
then
when you think
and
of
they're all
yourself
following
first,
along.
that's racist or something. I mean, look at like Trump's policy of America first, which like should absolutely be the policy of every country's leader, is
One
their
would think
country
so.
first.
Yeah, one would think so. But I mean, the
But-
fact that Biden was in Canada to negotiate the influx of some of their refugees that they can't handle anymore to become our refugees is mind-blowing. Like,
Which I don't think we're allowed to do because of the whole, like draft dodger thing that we did like way back when the Vietnam thing was going on. But
And of course,
Mm.
that's against the whole safe third party or
Yeah.
safe third country agreement, right?
I don't know anything about what you're talking about, so I'm gonna take your word for it.
It's basically, if you're a refugee,
Don't worry, they made it
and-
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you're a refugee and you step foot in what's considered to be a safe country, you
Yeah.
don't have the legal right to go to a third country and also
Oh.
claim refugee status there. So by the time
Oh.
they stepped foot in the States, they had no legal basis for any sort of refugee claim in
Yeah.
Canada.
Well,
But-
one would think so, but
yeah,
what's his nuts has gone ahead and said, well, and I have to say that, if this is in response to the fact that some ballsy folks near the border started shipping immigrants inland, kudos, good for them. There's obviously a response. It just sucks because we have just as shitty of a leader that's not willing to just be like, oh, hey, for a year, we wouldn't let people fly within their own country, but we'll let everybody from the rest of the world come in.
well, I mean, during that whole thing, there was not a single flight from China that was stopped.
And confirm.
Meanwhile, okay, so this is a
But
very
we've still
much
got
off.
that Russian jet sitting there that we won't let leave.
But this is okay. So back to the China thing though, and the insanity of it. They are known for like having, like hemorrhagic, what is it? Hemorrhagic fever or flu or whatever. Either way, not good. They're known for it. Still hosted the Olympics, still had people traveling while they were welding people into their apartments.
I don't know.
And
I like
everybody
how
knows this. Everybody
how-
knows this.
I like how recently we sort of seem to have come like full circle on this, and it's like we're now back to like COVID coming from a wet market, but just not. It's not a bat anymore. It's like some other weird animal or something, is what they're trying to say now. Where it's like,
It's insanity.
well,
Guys, I'm gonna run.
All right.
Okay. Bye, Peter.
Peter, good to have
See
you
you
on.
guys.
We miss you.
Doubt it.
True, we do.
But yeah, like it's just I don't know, idiots being idiots.
I think it's just kind of hard to, again, kind of, and maybe this is my more delicate sensitivities, but I think it's just a challenge to watch people be so swept away with ignorance, whether willful or manifest through, push narrative. But, there is a growing faction of Canadians that are becoming more aware of what's going on, but it's still so many people are just not checking in and
Well,
watching
I
this
think
happen.
I was gonna say the last 3 years have taught me that most people think they would be Oscar Schindler. In reality, most people would just be a Nazi.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That
Like,
is
they
a
would
great way to put
Just
it.
go along with it and pump the company line and whatever they're told in
Yeah.
the media and go along with it. Very few people actually stood up and were willing to put out a risk.
It's okay. We're
to
just going to
others.
ask for amnesty after. We're not going to actually apologize or admit
Yeah.
that we did anything wrong. We're just going to ask for amnesty.
Well, and I'm gonna be real. I know a lot of people that were put in a position where they felt like I have to put food on my table, so I need to, get vaccinated. There was a lot of people I
Yeah.
know that probably would not have gone ahead. Yeah, right. That would not have gone ahead with doing it on a medically feeling positive basis. right?
Yeah.
They would not have done it because they felt like it was a medical miracle that was going to save them. So that part, I kind of feel for those people, because I haven't allowed myself to be put in that position to make that decision. And I also believe that I can get on my feet if I, lose a job. I've done that a few times over the past couple of years. But not everybody is in that position. And I, have a couple of dogs to care for, not children and a spouse. So,
but there's a difference though between those that unwillingly did a thing in order for that to like put food on their table and look after the people in their care, like them.
No, but it's the
And I know a few people
it's the
that
people
like
that supported,
that,
like, oh, hey, we're gonna actually behave in discriminatory manners.
The people that put them in that position
but
are
even,
the ones that are the problem. Like,
but even, like people that a good example would be when you got artisanal grocery stores. There's one local to me that are putting in mandates that the government isn't even requiring. So this is not you under duress.
No,
this
there are
is
people
you
that
voluntarily
went above
being
and
an
beyond.
asshole. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and are still going above and beyond.
Those are the people that also look at the immigration crisis, that also look at the taxation, that also look at, some of the changes that are occurring in Canada, and don't think twice about it. They're like, oh, well, must love everyone. Oh, well, that's their opinion, must do right by the government, toe the line. I voted that guy in, so I need to back him. Yeah. Right. And those are the folks that it kind of hurts my brain, and it kind of makes me angry, because when I see them, I'm like, you hurt people.
Yep.
You willingly hurt people by your words and your actions and your lack of action. And I'm not calling people to arms. That's not my thing. I'm just saying that, it's pretty easy to walk out of a restaurant when they've just kicked somebody out and made a public display because they're not vaccinated, or when somebody comes in and, just demands respect or demands something for them, DEI hiring drives me bananas, because I'm like, I'm not going to hire somebody because they fall into a minority, which is now what's going to be increased even more. Think about this immigration thing. That's going to grow.
And maybe this is my, white male privilege speaking here, but like,
shut up, Gavin.
So if I was the visible minority of some sort, and I went and applied for a job somewhere and got the job, and then found out after the fact that this company has these kinds of policies, I would be kind of annoyed, or at least I would like to think that I would be kind of annoyed, because I would never know whether I got the job based on my merits, or if like I just got hired because I'm the token whatever it is.
I do think that is coming from a place of privilege.
Sure.
Because this is why I'm saying, like, I think that I think the same way. And even though I'm white, I'm a lady, so I've got a notch on the DEI scale. Yeah. But I think it's because some folks, usually if you're immigrating or if you're a refugee, I shouldn't say immigrating, if you're a refugee coming in and you've just gotten some status and capacity and visas, that sort of thing, you're kind of willing to do anything. And what a lot of people also don't realize is that, I'm with you though, like, I'm all about integrity and work, right? Like, and I do not think that a handout is a good, fulfilling system, because it does not inspire any kind of good work of any kind. But I think that we kind of undervalue a large part of the population that we don't see, that doesn't even speak English or understand English. Like, you go to places in Toronto, and we kind of know this, and Toronto's just an example, but like London, another big city in Ontario, they have an insane Spanish speaking population, like very large. And, some of the older generations don't speak English. They have kids or grandkids that go to school and have a job, but there's still a huge population that doesn't speak English. And that's the same in Toronto. Like, you know, there's the little
Oh, yeah.
cities inside. And we forget about that. And it's like, yeah, these folks could easily get into a job faster than us and don't speak English. And I'm absolutely not preaching any kind of hate. I just want people to understand that there is a reality to allowing the doors to be opened.
Sure.
And, you know, like when we've got a pretty significant population that's on unemployment or now coming off of CERB, we don't have a labor shortage. We have a lazy shortage, like a lazy issue.
But then, so maybe rather than saying that like companies need to have quotas, maybe what they need to do is have a blind hiring process.
Yeah. That
Right.
that makes sense, where it's like a numerical thing where it just indicates.
Right. So it's, you know, if you happen to get,
That would be true equity. Okay. That would be,
but that's the thing is like, and that's how it
equity is
should
kind
be.
of a trash word anyway. So
Well,
Right, like-
there's a big difference between equality of opportunity and equality
Yes.
of outcome. There's two big differences there.
well, and a lot of people think that equality of outcome is what they deserve. And I'm like, no, it really isn't. Because
Right, and yeah, I
uh,
get the new immigrant that like just needs a job and they're willing to take whatever
Yeah.
they can get. For those people that are willing to that are actually willing to put the work in, great. It is an excellent opportunity for them, and I would not
Absolutely.
fault them for taking advantage of that opportunity to take the job over somebody else.
but you know
But
what?
if you're talking about somebody that is a Canadian citizen and has been since birth, but also
Mhm.
happens to fall into one of these visible
Yeah.
minority categories, but is no different than any other Canadian. They've gone through the same school and everything else as, you know, like their best
don't
friend
even-
of another culture background. but,
I
like,
just think that like minority hires is just a trash system.
Yeah.
Because here's
'Cause
the
it's
thing
so-
is that
it's supposed to
equity,
not be relevant, but here it is
I
now
know.
being told that
I know.
it matters.
it's a huge thing. And it's, to me, it's a kind of alarming. Like when you start seeing small town, and I consider like my area kind of small town, even though it's still in, you know, lower Ontario. It's small town given that balance, right? Or that figure. But it's when they start talking DEI in local shops, like I'm talking some of the biggest manufacturing facilities in our area still only boast a couple hundred, maybe a few hundred round the clock shifts. Those are pretty small. Okay. There's some pretty small manufacturing facilities, or average size, whatever. But when they talk DEI, I'm like, if it's hit us, like we're screwed.
Yeah.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
And I'm just,
And,
and I don't know, maybe that's why this whole China thing and this China, you know, interruption in the election and that sort of thing, maybe that's why that's not as noticeable for folks, right? Like maybe that's why people don't notice it anymore, because how dare you speak out against,
Well,
you know,
yeah, it's
China or something, right? Like,
all
Or
of
they
a
know-
sudden you're racist. Yeah.
yeah.
Or they know it's just gonna be ineffective if they do.
Well, I think the last time I was on the podcast, or a couple of times, I kind of talked about that. It's just like how disheartening some of this stuff is, you
Yeah.
know, like what's going to happen if you stand up? You know, we want people to be active and kind of stand up for what's right and all these things. What's that going to change? We have, you know, our intelligence service isn't even holding our system to account. We have no, you know, internal responsibility system that is effective. The closest thing we've come to is the trucker convoy. And that's just because that was an international PR nightmare.
But we also have
And-
no deterrent. I mean, what's the penalty for spying in Canada? What's the penalty for spying in the States? Two different
Yeah.
outcomes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even shoot down the spy balloons until the Biden guy tells us to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even then, like, I mean, we could literally have something like giving away, like, if we had nuclear secrets, but if we, you know, they could give away nuclear secrets to
Yeah,
China.
nobody wants our secrets. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
mean,
but
we're-
you know,
we're like-
but we can give them anything we want as a spy. The worst we could possibly ever expect to get in, like, an absolute worst case scenario is 25 years would be out in 8 with good behavior based on our parole system. If you're
Sure.
under 18, you'd have your record scrubbed when you turn 18. And whereas
Well,
down
and
the
that, and
states,
unless
down the
you're an
States, you'd be lucky
MP,
to
then they
get-
don't do anything.
yeah, and then but then of course, like if you're down the states, it's like the chair, lethal
Yeah.
injection, maybe a firing squad. Depends on whether we get a military tribunal. Depends on who they work for, right?
Yeah.
And whereas like there's actually a legit deterrent down there, but it's just you can't expect people to not take advantage of a system when there's no reason not.
Yeah.
I had a friend who is in the States. He mentioned to me one time, because we were kind of talking about all this, because he's from the East Coast and he's in the National Guard and stuff like that. And he's just been kind of watching it. And every once in a while, he just sends me memes about Justin Trudeau. And it's pretty funny because I'm like, oh, good. The Americans are just as excited about him as we are. But it's pretty interesting because he said, he's like, I think the difference between the Canadians and Americans in terms of, some of the things that are being pushed is that Canadians really didn't have to fight for freedom. It was
didn't
kind
get
of just,
Yeah.
pardon?
We
Yeah.
didn't get freedom.
I know, but it was kind of like ceremoniously, like subtly, just kind of, here you go.
No, so
Whereas,
think-
yeah, but
well,
in
I
the
think you're
States,
conflating
though,
the two arguments, though. So the Americans went there and said "f you" over a 3% tax, went to war, shot the people that were like,
absolutely, that's what I'm
presiding
saying,
over
though,
them.
right?
And basically said this is our freedoms. End of point.
Yeah,
We went cap in hand and asked for privileges, and we were eventually given them after much debate.
yeah, and after a long, but you're right. But that's what I'm saying. There's no freedom that where I was going with that is we as people have not had to fight or defend freedoms.
Actually,
Or
even
we've
worse,
not really done.
We've had to fight to maintain our own jackboot on the neck type of thing to defend our king at this point. And fight in wars that we didn't even want to join, such as World War I. We didn't have a choice. So not that we haven't had to fight for our freedoms, we've actually had to fight to reinforce our own slavery. So,
but people don't get that though, right? So it changes the culture of how we exist within our country, right? Like in the States, they're kind of like, oh, we're fighting for this. In Canada, it's like,
Well,
very apathetic.
They quite literally earned those freedoms and realize, they're starting to forget what it cost at this point because it's so far removed, and a republic has a lifespan of only so long. And it seems that America is reaching sort of towards the end of that. But like never having had to do that in Canada because we've always just sort of begged for permission and been begrudgingly given it at, eventually, and then we sort of get them revoked from time to time. And
we still have to get the queen's or king's okay at this point every time we want to change a law, ceremoniously or not. So
No, it's
they
true.
never really let go.
If it pleases the crown, might I collect rainwater on my own property that I already pay taxes on?
Yeah. And that is true. Like that's an interesting way to look at it, is that we've kind of fought for the privilege to be slaves.
Not only that, we don't own anything.
No,
like,
it's true.
You don't own your land. If you own your land, you wouldn't pay property tax on it.
Yep.
And you'd have mineral rights to it. And you'd have the ability to, there'd be no building codes and so on and so on. You don't own your land.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that it can be taken away from you to build
whatever.
Be expropriated.
Walking paths for people.
And look at the original title on your property. If you actually own a house, pretty much in any province, you can actually take a look at the original title, and it says basically you're on a temporary loan from the Queen. You don't actually have the title to the property; you have a deed.
Apparently, there is something.
There's some ways that you can do it.
Still do something,
but you have to buy it in friggin' gold, and there's like a whole process that you got to go through.
And nobody does it because it's so antiquated and like. But
that would be lawful. That would be lawful.
Yeah,
but the gig.
But even then, you still
is like,
don't.
how do you enforce?
Like outright own your property? You have slightly more property rights because you've done some secret handshake or whatever it is that you need to do, right? Like,
but I'm still kind of the opinion that, irregardless, they don't give two shits about me and what I think.
No.
So, if they want my land, if they want the resources that are on my land, they're coming and taking it.
Yeah, because
You
we
know?
do not have property rights in this country.
Right,
Yeah,
and
but
if you put up enough of a fight, eventually men with guns come to enforce the law of the
Absolutely.
land, and so
Yeah.
basically you're doing under extortion and threat of violence.
Absolutely. Like there's a whole process that is just, it doesn't, I have no hope in that, in the system.
Yeah.
So leaning more towards Monty's Tavern, or we I thought you said you weren't advocating for armed insurrection here. Like I did.
Well, I mean, I gotta be careful what I'm saying here.
I know, just it's for entertainment
No.
purposes only. But seriously,
So no, for entertainment purposes only, and there is still whiskey in my cup. There's, I think that ideally, again, going back to that utopian idea, I do like the idea of being able to do your own thing. Not like, I think that there's a moral code that I think people do need to still abide by. Like, I don't think that you should have carte blanche capacity to do whatever you want. Like, I don't think so.
No,
Because there's enough crazy dumb people that just have no guidance in their life to point them down a good path, right? And that's how you get really confused and really broken people that are, you know, doing these
Right.
school shootings, that sort of thing, or like that kind of stuff
Yeah.
kind of comes out of it. But I do think that there should be nothing wrong with people defending the land that they live on. There should be nothing wrong with people living in small communities that govern themselves. There should be nothing wrong with that, and that are responsible only to that small group of people. Like,
but that's
I think that
where
there's nothing wrong with that, but my biggest thing is that I don't want to see things like the Freedom Convoy ever get equated to, you know, an insurrection, because that was the farthest thing.
Yeah,
Like,
but I mean, this is where my argument for a more tribalistic society always comes in, because yes, we need to establish a set of moral codes that we all can abide by,
yeah,
but who's better to do that? Like at a national level, a provincial
I don't
level,
think
or a
so.
municipal level, right?
There's
Like,
very little that I actually think.
and they should be the ones that enforce
Yeah,
that moral standard. And that doesn't mean that, like, you know, it's like, hey Jim, can like you stop putting up like your stupid flag in the morning because we don't like it? Like, I don't care that it's got friggin' marigolds on it. Like, we told you to, like, you know, you can't be
Mhm.
super like beat the shit out of them because they do something stupid like that. But like, if you have someone that moves into your community that does not abide by whatever the local community agrees on as the social norm and standard,
mhm.
then you can ostracize them, right?
Well,
Like, it
and
doesn't
I
give
think
you the
that
right
that
to like
kinda
be violent
happens,
to them,
though.
but but it doesn't because of the way,
No,
like,
I don't think it
we're
happens
not
right
allowed
now.
to
I don't think
discriminate against people, because somehow
No.
discriminating is a bad thing, even though we do it constantly all the time
I
for
know
various
the
things.
biases are astounding.
D-
No, I'm thinking more like we do it, like we can do some of that stuff now, but
Well, but can we though? Because like,
I don't think that we can to the extent that it's necessary in order to exist. I'm concerned always about living in an echo chamber and repeating history. So like
Yeah.
tribalism was a little bit like tribalism was very common when, you know, the new world was populated by, you know, colonizers. Right? Tribalism was a big
and
thing.
they've gone and
kind of-
ruined it, and we need
Yeah.
to return to it.
Well, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I mean, it did also kind of translate and eventually become, you know, what it is now 300 and some odd years later of,
But I mean, this
you
is the
know,
thing.
like
So is that the
an echo
more
chamber.
global we become, the more,
I don't like globalism. There's a sweet spot,
that's-
honestly.
and that's,
There's a
yeah.
sweet spot to be found. I
'Cause,
don't
like-
want to live in an echo chamber, but I also don't want to live in a melting
no,
pot.
but then you can choose to live in a community
Yeah.
that is that sweet
I want a
spot for
community
you,
hop. That's what I want to do.
right? And well, and you can still do that, right?
And
Like,
the shitty ones, I'm only gonna stay
but this
there
is
for,
where,
a
like, and
minute.
like, you know, to me, I don't, you know, the easy example is the who's going to bake the cake, right?
Yeah.
So like, and then again, sort of an American example, or like we can use Jessica Yanev's example of waxing the balls. Like they've determined that like, okay, so like that's not a thing, but like what happens when that does become a thing where it's like, oh no, you can't discriminate because of that, right?
Right.
Well,
If you don't shave those lady balls, you're getting ostracized. Yeah.
right, it becomes ridiculous. So like with the cake thing, because I don't want to talk about someone's balls, like to me, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
To me, a private business should be able to decide what a private business wants to do. But I think if we're going to make rules and regulations that say that you need to bake a cake for this type of person, whether you agree with it or not, that needs to be enforced across the board.
It needs to go the other way. Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
if you walk into any other bakery owned by any other ethnicity and ask them to make something that is offensive to their ethnicity, culture, religion, they should absolutely have to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then at least it's fair. So if we're
Yeah,
going to be
but
fair,
I mean,
then we need to be fair, or we could
that's
just
not really
have-
how it works. That's not really
but
how it
this
works.
is the thing. So this is if we go to this is because we've become global and
Yeah,
we've
it's
got
true.
these stupid things where it's like discriminating is bad unless you discriminate against this, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas at least if you had that smaller community and it's like this community doesn't like XYZ, like, okay, like that's not cool, but also like then fucking don't go there.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Like build your own community, then you go, the people that live here, we don't like them and they can't come here. Everyone else is cool, but these guys that don't like us, they can fuck right off.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all discriminate. We need to stop thinking of that as a bad thing. We shouldn't discriminate against things that are stupid and don't matter and start discriminating more against things that do.
Well, that's the other thing too, is that, we've really taken the English language and twisted it around, and started implementing words that don't mean what we think they mean and all this stuff. And, I'm sure that there's tons of English loving, folks that are probably a little.
When I'm the one giving English lessons, it's terrible because my English is atrocious.
Yeah, mine's a little off too. But that's the point though, right? Is that we're kind of so far of center now that it's a little, it's very disheartening. And, is there an answer to it? Well, no, there's not really an answer, because even if, a bunch of us were going to go and disappear in the woods and build our own colony of, freedom loving people, we still live in a world. I know it sounds amazing. It sounds amazing, but we still live in a world where that's just a bit of a, like, it's a Band-Aid solution. We don't live in a world where, we can get away from the government's prying eyes. We don't live in a world where that's acceptable. And especially because, like, if we're all used to the comforts of today's world, like, if you really want to make a change, even in your own life, in your own community, you have to stop living comfortably, essentially.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean,
stop being comfortable with what's going
people
on.
Should go out and do things that make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, but doing things and living in a way that is principled at every step to the point of discomfort are two very different things. People are willing to take on a challenge for a period of time, but and I'm not talking like, please don't take that as a dig.
No.
The challenges that you guys do, like, that's super impressive. But
I mean, in all aspects of life, people should do things that make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they should go and push their boundaries to become better people in all aspects of life.
Have a conversation with somebody you don't agree with. And don't get into a
lost
yelling
art.
match.
Yeah. And
the art of respectful debate is long since gone, basically, because somebody's going to either go to the ad hominem attack,
I know.
and lose the argument or whatever. They can't actually like even listen to the other person's views nowadays, which is amazing.
Wow, yeah, even hearing somebody say something you disagree with is some sort of microaggression.
I also just struggle with this whole idea of when did it become a thing where you're telling me your opinion and I have to counter with my opinion as a response or as a convincing point?
Or you can
Why
just
can't
walk
I just
away.
listen? Yeah, why can't I just listen to you and say, "Oh, okay, that's
I-
your opinion."
I
Peace,
don't.
yeah,
I usually don't give them my opinion. I usually just ask them questions about theirs, which makes them question their own opinion.
Yeah, and that's a great discourse method that a lot of people use in terms of like it's a good way to, circular reasoning. Just make them kind of dance around their own topic, right? And
Right.
come to their own conclusion about
Right.
what they're saying.
No.
It's a whole thing.
But
I
people
could
need
talk on it.
validation, so they want you to agree with their opinion. That's what they're looking for. They're not asking
Yeah.
for your opinion. They want you to agree with theirs. And there's
Yeah.
a big difference in today's society.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think people struggle with, admitting when their opinion is wrong too. I mean, I think it's human nature, but I do sometimes, if somebody challenges me to the point that I have to rethink my stance on something or a portion of something, it's kind of a
It's-
little challenging to swallow that, but it's a really good practice to have.
Well, and
It's really
especially
important to
when
kind of
the thing
establish
that
that
they
and do
they've
that.
challenged you on is something you feel is important to you and part of your core belief
Yeah.
system, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, like this could totally shatter the foundation of who I am, and if this changes, then who am I? But
Yeah.
being able to do that, as difficult as it is a very important thing, because we should always be trying to grow and be better people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean,
We
part
should
of that
start a
is,
philosophy course at this point.
I know.
Yeah.
I do feel like I could.
The Tao of the Patriot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been in enough philosophy courses in my day and I don't remember liking any of them. I don't think that I actually liked throwing ideas around and mixing them until I was like a little bit older.
I don't know. I could get behind, like, if we started bringing back like stoicism, like that's something
I think
could
all
get
of it.
behind.
I think all of it is, but I think it's important. That whole
Maybe
idea
not
of
the, like-
discourse. That's how they came
Yeah.
up with a lot of these foundational philosophies that really did set the standard for the Western and parts of the Eastern world. Like,
Yeah.
some of those founding fathers of
Yeah.
philosophy, the foundation of our entire education system, which isn't so great.
Yeah. I mean, I've read some of those books, and yeah. I'm
I
glad
know,
I've
but-
read them, but also
But some of
them
that
are
stuff
really
is also
boring.
culturally, boring for sure. Some of that stuff is also culturally relevant, right? Like,
Oh yeah, but all the more reason why you should experience other things and understand other cultures, whether you agree with them or not, but at least
Yeah.
you can understand them.
it's
But
true.
also tribalism is where it's at.
I know,
And
right?
group
So,
preference works for
Yeah.
chickens, works for everything else.
Yeah,
there you go.
Birds of a feather literally stick together for a reason.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we
Well,
should probably close this out.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Liz, where can people find you when you are not on the podcast?
You just have to wait and watch the podcast.
There you go. Works for me. Ian?
Yeah.
Well, occasionally you'll find me on the other podcast, the Copycat CPP, which is Canadian Prepper Podcast, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, or the undertweet@gmail.com. And that's pretty much it because I'm banned everywhere else.
Good work. You can also find us on Gilded. Some of us. Some
It's
of us
true.
are not some of us are not very good at it.
I am on Gilded, but I don't think
Yeah.
I've been on that app more than twice.
Yeah, I am in the same boat. But I mean, this is part of what, is our disdain for the listeners is quite high.
Okay. Yeah.
but that's okay. If you've waited through the show this long, you definitely deserve a discount. So you can use the discount code Patriot at ragnaroktactical.ca to pick yourself up some first aid supplies or some tactical accessories, stuff like that. You can also find me on the Instagram urbexgta. And I think that's pretty much everything.
Oh, actually, we do have to tell the fun story. So, Gavin and I were in a situation the other day where I was within like 5 feet of Rod Giltaca.
It's
and,
true.
And two BC people in the same room, and he had to hold me down so I didn't go across the table and say like there can be only one. And I was going to tackle him, but Gavin said maybe not today.
Yeah.
Maybe not today.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be like a formal challenge to make it.
I didn't even throw down
Yeah.
a glove or anything. I was just gonna like tackle him sideways, but I
Yeah.
had that. I'll let him talk. It's all good.
There might be
but-
some.
But yes, I believe that is also why Rod is not on the show this evening. He was recovering from meeting Ian in person, not in BC. He was
Yes.
shocked that there would actually be two people from BC allowed into Ontario at the same time.
And I was just like,
Well,
give him the
That's
evil eye.
funny.
yes. But a reminder to everybody that you are a small fringe minority